Hi, everyone. We are here today celebrating three Flash authors who have published or are publishing in the process of publishing Flash collections. We're here today with Avitus B. Carl, Chelsea Stickle, and Brett Biebel. Let me tell you a little bit about these people. Avitus B. Carl lives and writes outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her stories have been published in a variety of places, including The Commuter, Electric Lit, Moon City Review, Fractured Lit, and elsewhere. Her work was selected for 2024-2022 Best Small Fictions Anthology, 2023 Wigleaf Top 50, 2022 Best of the Net Anthology, and nominated for the Pushcart Prize, O. Henry Prize, and the Best Microfictions Anthology. Her debut flash fiction collection, These Worn Bodies, will be published by Moon City Press November 1st, 2024. That's a while in the future, but as soon as the pre-order link is made available to us by our friends at Moon City Press, we will get it to you post haste. She can be found online at avitusbcarl.com, on Substack at thesubconsciouswriter.substack.com, or online everywhere at avitusbcarl. That's C-A-R-L-E. Brett Biebel is the author of three collections of flash fiction, 48 Blitz, Winter Dance Party, and Gridlock, and two of those are in our virtual book fair, and a Mason and Dixon companion. His work has appeared in many magazines and been selected for Best Small Fictions and Best Microfiction. He lives, writes, and teaches in Illinois. Chelsea Stickle is the author of the flash fiction chapbooks Everything's Changing, 30 West Publishing 2023, and Breaking Points, Black Lawrence Press 2021. Her stories appear in Passages North, The Citron Review, Pete Smoke Journal, McSweeney's Internet Tendency, and others. Her micros have been selected for Best Microfictions 2021 and the Wigleaf Top 50 in 2022, and the Wigleaf Long List in 2023. She lives in Annapolis, Maryland, with her black rabbit George, who's very famous online, and a forest of houseplants. Learn more at chelseastickle.com. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that we're here with you because, we love you and your work. Now, the first thing that I love hearing when people win stuff. I love hearing when people do well at something. And I love hearing about that moment when you found out I'm getting something published. And it's not a story or something, it's a collection. Chelsea, what was it like for you, that moment that you found out you were getting it published?
So the moment I found out about Everything's Changing getting published, I'd actually landed back in the country from a writing retreat in Spain with Kathy Fish and Nancy Stallman. And little did I know, but I was incubating norovirus at the time. So it was a grab bag. The good and the bad always go together for me.
Okay, so I've had norovirus before. It was horrible. I was in the hospital for 24 hours with it. So thank you for that. Thank you for those memories. Okay, so you weren't feeling all that well, but but it was a joyful respite from the joys of norovirus.
I was actually in the line to get back into the country. So I was just reading through it all, and I had to read it a couple times. I was like, what is happening? This is insane.
Okay, so you were also dealing with immigration. Great, yeah. Okay, excellent. Avitus, what about you?
Well, I was actually working the full-time job when I got an email saying, "Hey, from Mike, can I give you a quick phone call?" And I'm like, God, what did I do? This press is messaging me, "Can I give you a quick phone call? Was something wrong with my collection that I submitted?" And so I was like, okay, not thinking that it would be anything huge. So I set down my computer. I work remotely for the full-time job. And I called him and he's like, "Congratulations, you won the Moon City Press Award for your short story collection. these warm bodies. And I was like, I really can't freak out right now because I'm supposed to be doing this other job and I could get a phone call any minute, but I'm trying to hold it in, but I'm super excited. And so I had to, all day, I had to figure out how to balance my excitement about getting my book published with trying to deal with doctors and all these medical terms and dealing with all that stuff. So trying to find the balance between something that you're absolutely been looking forward to versus the job that pays the bills is very difficult to handle in one day.
Yeah, because but were you around other people?
No, I wasn't around other people, but I tend to get a lot of phone. It was a Monday, so I get a lot of phone calls. So I was
Yeah.
nervous that like my boss would call any second.
Yeah. I would have been telling each one of those people, sorry. Yeah,
I'm
thank you.
taking a sick day. Bye.
Right, exactly. I'm taking that information for you. Thank you. And by the way, yeah. No, didn't happen. Okay, good.
Nope.
Well, all right. Brett, so now 48 Blitz was the first one, right? And then Gridlock came. And two very different publishers, and Split Lip and Cornerstone. They're both in our virtual book fair. Um, which one was the one that you absolutely freaked out about?
I'm sorry, I think I missed like the first part of that because my connection cut out.
Oh no. Okay,
So I could try to guess
no, 48 Blitz, right? 48 Blitz was the first one, right? Yeah. And then Cornerstone published your second one, Gridlock. So which one was the one that you just freaked out and called everyone about?
that would be the 48 Blitz, my first one. I found out about 48 Blitz in April of 2020. So I was in my basement reading. Couldn't remember the last time I'd left my basement. Reading an email, and sometimes when you submit to publishers, I feel like you sort of have a feeling about like this might, some of them I'm just like, okay, I'll just send this and not think about it because I know it's not going to come through. And then there's some where you're more hopeful. So Split Lip was definitely one where it was like, this feels like it might be the right fit. And then, when I got the note, I was very excited. It felt like a perfect fit. It was my first collection. Yeah, it was awesome. I was very excited. I took a quiet moment to myself and then I immediately started shouting.
Okay. So, but it was an email.
Yes.
Okay. And that call, I'm surprised. I mean, yeah, of course, Mike at Moon City, he's very, very communicative type of person. It's like I would expect him to want to call, I guess. But it's I don't know. It's strange. I would expect, man, yeah, just all via email. Okay. That feeling of knowing that it is right for the press, that's something I think is a very important topic to talk about. It's like how much do you look into so we all love Split Lip, and so we all have maybe a feeling for Split Lip. And when I was talking to Ross Tangadal from Cornerstone about Cornerstone, it was my first experience with Cornerstone. And that's why actually we're doing this virtual book fair so that we all meet these publishers and know them a little bit better. So did you know anything about Cornerstone?
I'm from Wisconsin. Cornerstone's based in Wisconsin, so I think I had a copy of one of their books. I had met Ross once or twice through. I do like a very small micro press in my academic job, just for students, just for campus. So we had conversed before, and so that's how I became aware of them as a place that might
Okay.
be a good fit. So both through the publishing and through the sort of personal connection.
All right. Excellent. And of course, Avitas, I'm sure you know Mike, right? Everybody knows Mike. Um, and so you knew that Moon City Press was right.
Yeah, well, I did because also I like read a lot of the collections they publish, like Kim McGowan's collection. I read like basically all of them, and then I also make sure to stop by their booth at AWP because it really is all about connections. And I made sure that everywhere I submitted the collection to knew who I was, and so yeah, but I really like the vibe of Moon City Press. And I really thought that not only would they like the stories that I was publishing, but also that they would take care of the book that I wanted to publish. Because I think that's also an important factor when looking for a publisher for your book is not only would they be a good press for it, but also would they be a good press to represent the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And Chelsea, Black Lawrence published your first chapbook, right? And uh, how much did you know about the press before you sent it?
So you can't know about the inner workings of a press until you've worked with a press. So what I knew about Black Lawrence was what I'd read. I'd read books from their collection. And for me, my first book, I was like, okay, Jacqueline Doyle's The Missing Girl is one of the most amazing chapbooks I've ever read. Hopefully, we can be on the same shelf next to each other. If they agree, they'll accept me. And that's how it worked out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That just reading work by the presses that you're interested in and knowing that it's the right fit. We have 25 presses in the virtual book fair right now, and that you can learn, we can all learn more about these presses. And when I was interviewing the editors, I just kept having a really, really wonderful experience with each one of them. Wonderful people, all of these people publishing Flash, and that's the point here. Chelsea, you are our first reader, um, and you're going to read from Everything's Changing, which is published by 30 West Publishing. And we will, yes, there it is. And you also have copies, which we will be giving everyone information about how to purchase them directly from you, autographed copies, and we will also be giving one away, autographed by Chelsea. So we reviewed this when it came out, and of course, so we love it. What are you going to read for us?
So I thought I would read a couple micros from it. The first one is actually the opener. It was in, oh my God, Cheap Pop originally. It's called Worship What Keeps You Alive. Hurricane Florence is barreling toward us. To prepare, we buy sandbags, candles, and non-perishables. We hide out in the bathtub, the four of us, Mom, Dad, Gretchen, and me, with the floral couch cushions over us like the grass over a grave. In our parents' arms, Gretchen wants to hear ghost stories, stories about the undying, stories about what will happen to us. Dad tells a story about a man with a hook for a hand. Mom says everyone dies, even ghosts meet an end eventually. Change is the only constant. But we've been in this bathtub for hours and nothing's changing, Gretchen whines. Mom says we have to take the long view. So we yank threads from the floral cushions, cut them with our teeth, and start braiding them together for survival bracelets. Gretchen's is all shades of green and a staircase. She weaves mine in pink chevron. Our teeth fracture granola bars and send the crumbs down the drain. We drink the water in bottles around our legs until they're empty, and we have to turn on the faucet, wetting our feet whenever we need refills. Gretchen wants to sit underneath and fill herself up. Mom and Dad tell more ghost stories to distract from the hunger. When we run out of granola bars, Gretchen forages for mushrooms unfurling along the edge of the tub, pops one into her mouth like she's sneaking a cookie. She chews slowly like she's savoring it. My stomach rumbles. Our hands dart into the unsafe space outside the cushions. There are always fresh mushrooms waiting. We lift up a corner and peek outside. The mushrooms had multiplied across the top of the tub, down the side, and across the floor. Dad says all mushrooms are connected, that they communicate through an underground network. Kill one and another will rise in its place. Perhaps the closest thing to immortality in the natural world. Gretchen whispers undying like she's found her answer. There are no ghosts, only fungi. She strokes the nearest one. In the corner, we spy the original mushroom holding its umbrella high over the others. Immortal mother mushroom we praise as we eat her children, destined to die and rise again, our mouths full, our tongues tingling. Everything good comes from mother mushroom. When Sunday comes along, we use mushroom caps for the Eucharist. We adapt hymns. We brew stews. We've never been happier. So the second story I'm going to read was originally an OK Donkey. It's also from Everything's Changing. It's called Modern Ghosts. I'm sorry to report that if you can hear me, you're dead. Such a shame, but don't worry, we'll help you adjust. Being a modern ghost is tricky. We're so used to a never-ending stream of information that being deprived of it one day is like running into a wall you didn't know existed. It's a bigger shock than dying. Dying is inevitable. No one knows there's no shit posting in the afterlife. Sometimes you're stuck to the place you died. The side of the road can be boring as fuck, but the more you separate from the life you once knew, the more you can move around. Overhearing conversations about pointless shit becomes fascinating. You'll still reach for your smartphone, but adapt to reading over other people's shoulders. You start to learn who watches what, so you can keep up with the news and even binge whole shows if you're lucky. If you haunt the right people. Without them, you just wander or curdle. It's the ghosts that stop thinking and growing that become poltergeists. The poor bastards are just trying to prove they exist by scaring the shit out of the living. The rest of us know the rules. Keep active and avoid the living you know. Staying active isn't hard. Some ghosts form sports leagues, and that keeps them occupied. Former meatheads discover that their physical strength doesn't translate to the ghostly form. It's all brain power. You should see Steve Jobs knocking it out of the park. Literally. The second rule is the hardest to follow. Sure, you care about them, but when you die, something is severed. The people you love become stories that you left unfinished. The desire to know their middles and endings can be all-consuming. It's the simplest way to become a poltergeist. Watching people talk about you like you're not there, like you can't see them or hear them, is maddening. So you fall around other people and watch them repeat your mistakes and realize there's nothing you can do about it. Your past is chiseled into the earth. Your future is written in the air. Your time alive was precious because it was limited. Now you have a meaningless eternity. And then you have to find someone else to haunt. Maybe a therapist. Thank you.
I never muted myself. Thank you so much. Yes, a therapist. Okay. I don't know. Hope we don't have any therapists in the room. Okay. Yeah, but maybe. I don't know. We're all therapists. We write Flash. Chelsea, choose a number between 4 and 28 for me.
5.
Oh, well, that is very, very easy because it's Don Steffler. I always say Don Steffler. I pronounce everyone's name in German, so I'm sorry, Don Steffler. Don, you've won. Do you have a copy of Everything's Changing?
I do actually.
Oh no! Oh! Should we go to another person then? Or would you maybe we should go to another person if I'll give you another book, Dawn. Okay. All right. So choose another number. Now, if everyone already has your book, okay, but yeah,
How about 7?
7. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom, boom. It's Mario. Mario, do you have Everything's Changing?
I do not. I would love
All
it.
right. Well, then you're going to have it. Then we will be giving your information to Chelsea. She's going to send you an autographed copy, and we will be reimbursing Chelsea for that. That's how we're doing it, right, Chelsea?
Yep.
I
Excellent.
never win anything. This is awesome.
Yes, you do. You won second place in the Smoke Long Workshop Prize.
True.
You did.
I'm never coming first.
For a ghost story. Also, it was a ghost story, Chelsea. Yeah, to bring it, to tie it into the reading. Okay, excellent. We're here with Avitus B. Carl, Chelsea Stickle, and Brett Biebel. And we're talking about the process of writing, compiling a flash collection, getting it published, that moment when we found out, and you'll have a chance at the end for some questions, and so be thinking about that. But I have my own questions. I want to know, as everyone does, how your collection or one of your collections came together. When did you know that it was something that was cohesive and not just random stories? Because we all write and write and write and write. And of course, we want at some point to collect them into something that shows the world what kind of writer we are. So Chelsea, how did, and you can talk about either collection, how did the collection come together for you?
So for me, how they came together is linked. I was looking at my body of work and a lot of flash writers can put their realistic stuff next to their surreal stuff, and it's totally fine. Francine Witt does that. She's a genius. Her work is amazing. But I looked at mine and I was like, I can't do this. Like, it doesn't work. So then I started separating out my stories. I put all the realistic ones over here and all the surreal ones over there. And it took a while, but I had the title for Breaking Points before I had like the body of work, because the title for me was like an umbrella that allowed me to put stories under it. So I was like, what are the stories about women at their breaking points? Let's put them all together. And then I arranged them by how deranged they were, basically. Like, the more unhinged stories are at the end. You start with women who are just like really just like trapped and they can't do anything. And the further you go along, the more nuts they get, which I love because they're done. They're over it. And so with my second collection, I was like, okay, where are the stories where there are transformations, where weird things happen? Let's put those together and see what happens. And I didn't know that my first collection was ready. I was just talking about this before in the breakout room. I was like, okay, the pandemic had just hit, and I was like, if there's ever a time to put together a collection, it's when you can't do anything else. So I was like, now's the time to execute the idea I had a while ago. Let's see if it works. And I sent it out and it got accepted.
Okay, tell us how many narratives are in each of them. And yeah.
Okay. Let's see. There are 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in the first one.
Okay.
There are 18.
Okay. So chapbooks. And so some people might be thinking, oh, I don't actually have that many, but you don't actually have to have 100 or 200 stories to start thinking about a work to send out, because people are looking for chapbooks or something that has maybe 20 stories in it. what were you thinking when you decided? Was there a word count that they were looking for?
No, it's usually page counts because sometimes you have like micros and they'll have like a 40-page limit. So it is more about like how many pages they need in order to publish it. Um, I can't remember what the first part of what you were saying was.
Um, that some people might think, oh no, I don't have that many stories, but
Right.
it's not that important. You finding a press that's looking for that number or that number of pages.
I mean, I'm a huge believer in chapbooks. I think they're incredible and they are the flash fiction of books. So, it's the same guiding principles. If you can write flash, you can put together a flash fiction collection because you just want that punch in the face feeling. Like
Yeah.
you just want something that's like unified and it feels like you can take somebody down maybe. And that's
I agree. I totally agree. Okay, so I was thinking of the Cupboard Pamphlet press. Uh,
they're so great.
and they are in our virtual book fair, and they publish tiny little books with maybe 30 pages or something, but they're tiny books, and they're offering 50% off. But the Covered Pamphlet publishes things of this length, and they love it, and we love it. So that made me think of that when you started. Okay, thank you, Chelsea. What about you, Brett? How did one of the collections, 48 Blitzer Gridlock, come together?
Um, so I'm really bad at deciding when a collection is done. Like I don't have a set of rules. My wife is like a really good baker, so she's very precise and she knows what she's doing. And for me, it's more like I'm just gonna cook this until it seems hot enough. And so like that's kind of how mine worked. I mean, with 48 Blitz, I knew I wanted to write stories about a place. A lot of stuff starts with place for me. And so I figured I wanted to have a number in the title, and I knew that most of these stories were going to be around I-80. So I was like, okay, I'll have 80 stories, but 80 stories is fucking monster number of stories. like 80 separate narratives is like a massively big number. So I just couldn't do it. And 48 is a nice number because there's a lot of football in the collection, and that's how many minutes are in a high school football game. And so it's like little structural games that help me tell when I'm done. My second collection is a lot about the Buddy Holly crash site in Clear Lake, Iowa, which happened in 1959. So I was like, okay, I'll write till I have 59 good stories, right? Right? I think it's like the poetry thing, where when poets get stuck, it's like, okay, I'll write a villanelle, right? Like give yourself a form, and then you don't have to really worry so much about generating the ideas. That's how it works for me.
Okay, and I love that. Giving yourself sort of a structure so that you can, the goal is there for you. And so you're not just aimlessly writing stories, but you're writing to a structure. And maybe it doesn't end up being the structure that you chosen, but you still are using it to work to get there. And I have to say, Brett, 48 is one of my favorite numbers.
It's perfect. It's very divisible. Yeah.
Really, 48 is and it has to be one of my favorite numbers. And I'm not just saying that. So I'm strange that way. What about you, Avitas? How did these worn bodies come together?
I actually also don't know when a collection is ready. I just saw a call for a contest and I was like, I think I got a collection here. Because we often hear as short story and flash writers that novels sell and short stories are a more difficult sell. And I didn't realize I had a collection until a friend pointed it out to me, which importance of having a community and a reading group here and a writing group is that you have friends who could spot things that you often don't see. So I had a friend say, you write about women a lot. And I was like, I guess I do. And so I just gathered all the stories that I had that featured women as the main characters or the narrators of their stories. And I was like, oh, dang, I'm working on something. Like, this is actually a collection of Flash. And I had micros in there. I had a one sentence story featuring a woman, and I had full length flashes of 1,000 words. And I just put them together and I kept writing towards that until I felt like I had a bunch of stories that could work together. And I just started sending it off, and I titled it These Worn Bodies, based on one of my favorite stories in the collection. So the title story is also one of my favorites in there. And yeah, I saw Moon City Press had a call. They were looking for stories. I pulled it up because I knew this might be a question. They were looking for manuscripts that fell between 30,000 words and 65,000 words, and I sent it off. And yeah, now we're here.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to ask, once you discovered that you were writing towards something that you knew at this point was cohesive, did that change how you wrote subsequent stories?
Yes, so I wanted to also publish stories that would not necessarily be in the collection, because I didn't want to just write stuff and then keep it to myself and then not keep writing. Because I had this paranoid thought that if I stopped publishing online, people might forget me. So I didn't want this like big gap between submitting the collection and not publishing anything, and just having to work my way back through the publication of Flash and line. So
Yep.
I also wrote stories that I knew would not fit into the collection. And I also started, and strangely enough, I wrote Flash. And then once I submitted the collection, I started writing short stories again. So that took me by surprise. And then Electric Lit picked up Trebuchet, which I actually started here in a previous Smoke Long workshop, which I'm happy about. Yay. But yeah, so the collection also helped me start diving back into short story and novel writing as a way to take a break from Flash, but also exploring other topics in Flash that wouldn't go into the collection.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And that's These Worn Bodies, coming from Moon City Press, November 1st. Brett, you are our next reader. And are you going to read from Gridlock or 48 Blitz?
I thought I'd do one of each if I have time. Yeah,
Excellent.
one story from each.
Take it away.
All right. So I want to read the first story from 48 Blitz, which is a lot about Nebraska, which is a really overlooked and underrated state, if you ask me. The state of Nebraska executed Matthew Allen Nowinski at 10:47 a.m. on a Friday, some 32 hours before the biggest Husker football game in at least a decade. In fact, in the days leading up to the execution, 200 or so citizens had written to the governor asking for a stay, and most of these letters said some version of the same thing. Nowinski was a fan. I support the death penalty. We don't want the bad karma. What's the harm in waiting a few days, or better yet, until the season's over? If he's going to go anyway, surely a month or two either way doesn't matter. And doesn't this happen all the time? For his part, the governor conferenced with staff that morning, and at least one advisor urged him to just issue the stay. After all, the letters were right. Nowinski would be dead no matter what. Why risk angering a couple hundred diehards and maybe losing some votes when we could just as easily say it's about reconfirming a few details, or because our fentanyl supplier fell through, or any number of other procedural reasons, this advisor argued, and the governor himself appeared to consider it. Then someone else piped up and said there was no way a couple hundred Husker fans who supported the death penalty were ever going to vote for a Democrat. And you know how conspiratorial everyone is these days. We delay and give a bogus reason, well, then the press comes sniffing around. And if we're honest, if we say we're worried about bad karma, then isn't that like saying the death penalty is something we should be ashamed of, when we all know it's nothing if not the truest, purest form of justice we got? Not to mention biblically sanctioned. If we frame it as an act of mercy, well, then we look like bleeding hearts, don't we? And remember what they did to Dukakis? Too much risk, not enough reward, she said. Ultimately, the latter argument won out. A small group of protesters gathered outside the state prison in Lincoln, most of them Catholic nuns who didn't care much about football, although there was one, Sister Perpetua William, who pinned a big red N to her overcoat and talked to one of the journalists about the days of Tom Osborne and Tommy Frazier, and how if she wore the big hat, one of them would be the real St. Thomas and the other beatified at the very least. They prayed for Nowinski, read letters from his family talking up his generosity, how he used to buy drinks for the whole bar after touchdowns, asked God to bring healing and peace to all touched by his crimes. Inside the execution room, Nowinski knew very little about any of this and cared even less. He'd resigned himself to his fate years ago. He had mulberries for his last meal, chatted with the guards about Ohio State being overrated, and let it be known that were he a betting man, he'd sure as hell take the points. When it came time for his last words, he gave a wave in the direction of his witnesses and said, "I love my Huskers, but they get their asses kicked tomorrow. There's no way I'll be sorry I missed it." Somebody laughed quietly. Then they brought out the needle, and everything went mostly as expected. Nowinski coughed a few times. At the very end, according to one of the media observers, he turned the deepest red you ever saw, though exactly what kind of omen this was, nobody could quite figure. That was originally published in Master's Review. I think that was one of the first big stories I had published, and was a really big help to me. So I was really, really grateful to them, and really helped the whole collection come together. We're talking a little in the breakout rooms about like linked stories, linked collections versus more disparate ones. My third collection is more disparate, more thematically linked. So I thought I'd read a story from that one. This was originally published by Atlas and Alice. It's called Holy War. A kid from our town fell off the water tower and walked away. 150 feet and no hospital, no fractures, not a fucking scratch, and media were everywhere. Must have been a slow news week. Trucks from Fox and ABC News, and they're interviewing all these Big Ten physicists who keep talking about subatomic particles and many worlds and statistical improbabilities. And some of these real fundamentalist type churches set up tents on site, and you could sometimes hear them singing praise and worship shit, Stephen Curtis Chapman or whatever. A few of them put up this massive cross on the exact spot, and this was after the whole thing died down. Everyone left, and the kid went back to drinking and driving down to Iowa to bet on hockey and baseball, and sometimes me and Maggie will head out there at night to the cross. It's strung up with these Christmas lights the whole year round. It was a big fight at some city council meeting a while back about power supply and public expense. But then this private donor came through, and it's like Jesus turning water into wine, how these farm town Christians can always get their hands on some serious scratch. We like to drink wine out there now that I mention it. The nice bottles, 10, 12 bucks, just dry enough. And we talk about miracles, money. The whole thing's purple and giant and gold. And I ask Maggie what she believes in. Kids, she says. Crops. Anything that grows. And what about you? And I never have an answer. Too complicated. The way miracles are nothing but tiny numbers, and I'd get my ass back up there if I was him. Stare straight down, measure an arc, linger on choosing and death and significance, and what are the odds, I'd think, the chances I could somehow pull it off again.
Love the voice. Yeah, in both of those. And I have to say, I wanted to say when you were reading too, Chelsea, love the voice. Voice is so important in Flash. It's because you don't have so much time to, the voice has to boom, be there. And it is there for both of you. Thank you. Okay, Brett, give me a number between 4 and 29.
Well, I can't pick 48, so I'll pick the opposite. I'll pick the opposite of 48, which is 17.
Is that the opposite of 48? I don't know how to make that a 4. Oh, goodness. See, okay, so the strange thing about me is that every single time someone mentions a number, this is just letting you into a little bit of my crazy, I have to make sure that it equals 4, which one, yeah, 7 doesn't. If anyone could help me with that. Okay, 17. Let's see. 5, 10, 15. Amy Blau. Amy Blau is in Arizona. Hi, Amy. How you doing? You're muted.
I said Amy Blau is sweating in Scottsdale, and I never win anything.
Well, now you have. Now, you can have 48 blitz from Split Lip, or you can have Gridlock from Cornerstone. And Either one is fine. They're both in the virtual book fair, and we'll order it for you.
I'm going to let the author choose.
Oh, okay. Brett.
Are you more
Surprise
into
me.
are you more into something like more novelistic with stuff that fits together, or stuff that's just kind of more scattered?
I'm not into football, if that helps.
Okay. Let's do gridlock. Let's do gridlock.
Gridlock. All right. From
And that's more scattered.
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect for me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay,
Thank you. Totally appreciate it.
Avitus, I want to start with you. You're in the middle of edits, or are you in what's the process like right now at Moon City?
Yeah, so right now I'm in the editing stage, and my writer friends know, editing and I do not get along.
Why not? Does editing
Editing
loves you? Editing loves you.
Editing
Editing
does
loves you.
not love me. I do not love editing. I like
Oh,
the story when it just comes out and it's nice and it's done and it's gone. No, editing is the stories that linger and they're like, yeah, this is an idea, but I need more plot or I have too many characters. So luckily, I'm not in that throw of the editing process. I'm more in the let's make sure all these stories still work together in the collection. Let's make sure we have the capitals in the right spot and we have the periods and the commas in the right places and everything's just working together. And let's make sure to shout out the journals that have published the stories that they're mentioned, because I look back and I was like, ooh, I forgot a few people here.
and that's perfectly normal, okay?
Yeah.
Because Flash writers, we write a lot of things. It's not like we publish 6 novels in our lifetime or whatever. We published 600 Flash, and so when somebody says, "Oh, where did you publish that?" and it was like 6 or 7 years ago, and you're thinking, yeah,
It's on my website.
yeah, the list is there. But so that's perfectly normal. But it's coming along, right? So what's
Yes.
the process been like?
It's been fantastic. I was just telling my previous breakout room that I'm also getting the blurbs, which is just, doing wonders for my ego. And like people like it. And I'm also Mario knows that I'm working on publicity right now and talking to people about that and handling it on my own. So I'm making my own publicity. I've talked in my first breakout room, I'm doing a publicity kit, which is I'm gathering stuff like how to pronounce my name as a little recording and sending it to people.
Thank you for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I learned that from a podcast, and I would have never thought to record me saying my name as an easy way for people who want to interview me or do a podcast or do anything about the book to know how to pronounce my name. So,
Yeah.
also, podcasts, fabulous resource for not only learning how to do publicity, but also getting your work out there, and just incredible. Can't say enough about it.
Okay, excellent. And you, Brett, what's you can talk about the process at Split Lip or Cornerstone, but can you tell us a little bit about like behind the curtain the publishing process?
I think the biggest thing that I continually is hard for me to wrap my head around is just how much gets done after your manuscript gets accepted. I mean, there's just so much. It's like it just changes so much. And I think all my experiences with Flash collections have all been very different, and they've all been great. Like I've had editors who are really good at how to order these stories. I have editors who are really I've had presses who are really line by line, like I'm going to get in there and take stuff apart. I've had sort of individual, it's really just one person kind of looking at this, and we're going back and forth. I've had like, oh, this is a group, you know, and I think for me, it's just like getting into editing mindset is all about kind of trying to learn from each of those parts, right? And not getting totally set on anything, but trying to sort of figure out where the real strength, because I think every editor has big strengths, and so just trying to maximize those. And I've been lucky that all the editors I've worked with have been really, really good, and the presses have been really, really good. I mean, small presses exist because these people love this stuff, right? And I'm so grateful for that. I think that's so awesome.
Who did you work with at Cornerstone? Because Ross Tangadal is of course the editor, but it is actually a student-run press, and it is part of their publishing curriculum, which is a very interesting. Everyone can hear Ross talk about that in the virtual book fair.
Yeah.
But did you work with one of their student editors?
I worked with about 4 or 5 students. I think it was a
Oh.
team. So I had a lead. I had a lead editor who was an undergraduate student who was awesome, like like incredibly attentive. And I think that's actually really one of the strengths of Cornerstone is that, and presses like that, is that that's what the students are focusing on, and that's their job really, 100%. So that was great. That was a great experience. I have nothing. I feel like I've been very lucky with all the presses I've worked with. It's been really wonderful.
Excellent. And Chelsea, what was your experience at Black Lawrence?
So one of the things I really loved about Black Lawrence was when I signed my contract, they were like, okay, here's a total layout of everything that's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And like there were cushions of time. So like there was no worries. It was going to get done. It was lovely in that way. And I had an amazing editor named Kit Frick, who is not there anymore, but she was so good at going through and being like, okay, I'm not 100% sure what's happening here. Can you clarify this? I'm like, yes, let's do this. The version that I turned in wasn't that different from the one they published. We did look at ordering because I really believe in ordering. I know some people will like read a book and like go in completely random order, but I definitely believe in ordering. And I was like, do you think this is good? Like, help me out. I need a second opinion. And she was really great.
Oh, okay. So was it the order that you had, or did they decide to reorganize the stories?
I think we moved a couple, but it's more or less the same, I think. I don't think it's that different. I know that I had a really strong opinion about the first and the last story, and the rest of them I was like, okay, we can kind of play with this. But I know how I want it to start and I know how I want it to end, which is also how I felt about my second chapbook too.
Okay. All right. All of this is very, very, very important and interesting. If anyone else has another question, please keep that in mind. But right now we're going to hear Avitus B. Carl read from her forthcoming collection, These Worn Bodies. Avitus, take it away. What would you like to read?
All right. I have 2 pieces here, and depending on time, I might get to both of them. But I asked myself what to read. I didn't know if we wanted to go weird or if we wanted to be pretty down to earth or something in between. And then I was like, I'm going to read some pieces that have not been published. So this is an exclusive reading. And I'm going to do a little bit of weird and a little bit of down to earth. So this one is called The King of Tent City. I'm in love with the King of Tent City, Chicago. Me, the woman sipping on gasoline. I'm on a pilgrimage to find the last Texaco in the US when I see her, the King of Tent City, in an oversized army jacket and a newspaper crown. This is our home, she says to her followers who peep from behind tent flap doors. We have a right to be here. Then she looks at me, points her gloved finger at me. We all have a right to be here. I am the woman sipping gasoline, sometimes from an old Campbell's soup can. However, I prefer straight from the nozzle, diesel with a hint of strawberry starburst. The king of Tent City notices me, notices how I can maneuver my way around these stations, how I mingle with truck drivers, sneak shots from minivans, trade cigarettes, lottery tickets, and road maps marked with the best pit stops per state in exchange for gasoline sips. The king of Tent City says she likes how I work, says I could be of use to her. I prefer to drink gasoline straight from the nozzle, diesel with a hint of strawberry starburst. However, because of the king of Tent City asks, I get my shot straight from the tank with a crazy straw shaped like a shell sign. While the citizens of Tent City stop traffic with their cardboard signs asking for money, for help, for the kindness of strangers, I sneak up to the travelers' gas tanks. I drain their supply, force them to stop and refuel at the nearest gas station. The king of Tent City waits for them at 7-Eleven, discusses the mistreatment of her subjects, hands out pamphlets made from pizza boxes, newspapers, letters, even mini tent figures made of soft drink cups and condiment packets. Support the cause, she says. Save Tent City, we say. Because the king of Tent City asks, I get my shot straight from the tanks with a crazy straw shaped like a shell sign. Though, if I'm honest, I still have Texaco on my mind. I find comfort in the license plates of strangers, gain the courage to ask if they've been to Texaco. We haven't been there in years. The drivers share stories of their parents, of road trips and stalled cars. The king doesn't mind these conversations, encourages me to continue. Memory shared tends to lead to more money, and more money supports the cause. I sometimes ask about other tent cities, ask if they are thriving, if they welcome newcomers and kings. Though, if I'm honest, I still have Texaco on my mind. I have a map, I say while kissing the king and show her my planned route. You could stay, she whispers into my hair. You could leave, I hold the map higher. Maybe she isn't seeing it as clearly as I do, and I tell her all that she's missing. On the road, there are not battles to be fought. There's adventure, new sights, and I tell her all the people she might meet if she'd just come with me. Are you bored here? Never, I say, and pull her closer to me. Then you expect me to abandon my people? I bite her skin to hide my anger because, yes, I really do. I bite my king harder, watch my marks pock her skin like Google Maps pins. She clings to me so I have no choice but to collapse and remain inside her tent. I have a map, I say, while the police pat me down, my head pressed against the hood of a patrol car. We are trespassers, a disturbance. We are unruly disruptions, a band of vigilantes who dance around burning barrels. My tent city king fights until the end, leads her army of refugees with weapons made of broken glass bottles, of used needles, tent poles, and broken street signs for shields. She charges towards me, towards the Chicago PD, and I can't help but smile. My bite marks swell in the sun, a map marking landmarks I've traveled on her. The war doesn't end in a massacre, though she'll say it will. We are held captive for 3 days, a new tent city, I'll ask while she stands beneath the underpass where her kingdom once stood. No, she'll sigh, kiss me, and then she'll ask, how long do you think it will take us to find Texaco? Thank you.
Oh, I
Do I
love
do I have time for one more? Or is that it?
like a micro, something,
Like
a
a
little,
sparse
yeah.
mic. Yeah.
Sparse micro. Let's go.
It's all sparse. I have to say it up for you. All right, so this short one is called, Is This Really How It Happens? You cheated, and then I cheated. I tried to cheat, lips puckered behind the bleachers with Levi Patterson, but then I thought, is this really how it happens? I started thinking about you. I didn't want to. I couldn't help it. I started thinking about you and Hazel from Chem, unless you also kissed Hazel from Band. Did you? How many friends do you have? I started thinking about you and whichever Hazel with your tongues in each other's mouths, hoping your braces cut her tongue. And I'm about to kiss Levi, knowing you kissed Hazel in the janitor's closet while I waited for you to go to lunch, thinking this whole kissing thing really supposed to be so easy? I didn't kiss Levi. I wish I did. I wish I wanted to. I thought I might have liked to, especially since he seemed interested in me. Not like how you used to be, always trying to hold my hand in secret under the table. I can tell Levi thinks a lot about what he wants to say before he actually gains the courage to talk to anyone. He always notices when I'm wearing a new dress, and we both have a love for Converse and Animaniacs. And I thought those things might have made us kiss compatible. But Levi just shrugged and walked away. And it's not fair that it's so easy for both of you and for Hazel, because I love you. And I want this to be hard for you too. Thank you.
Oh, I wasn't muted. Okay. Oh my God, what a wonderful ending. I want this to be hard for you. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'll remember that. I'll remember that forever and ever. Thank you so much. Now, Amitas, give us a number between 4 and 27.
Ooh. I'm going to go 22.
All right, here we go. 5, 10, 15, 20, 22. Linda Bailey.
Woohoo!
Yes. Now, you are going to have to wait a while for this because it is not yet available. But as soon as it becomes available, we will put you on the pre-order list for these worn bodies.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
And I will contact Mike about this very, very soon because we hope we'll be able to get it in the virtual book fair before we end on August 4th. And so, yeah. Or we can send everyone the information just in an email. We don't have to have it in the virtual book fair. Thank you so much, everyone. Now, we are almost out of time, but we do have a few minutes for questions. Is there a question that was not answered? And if you have a question, you could unmute yourselves and just ask it quickly.
I got one. So
Yeah.
the most important piece of advice you've gotten so far that you wish you would have known before you started the process?
Just anyone jump in that if something comes to mind.
That's hard. I think for me,
I know, it's a big one.
Like, I think the thing that's been the hardest for me to learn that I think has been the most valuable is I don't have to write like I read. I read really, I like to read long novels. Like in my academic books about Pynchon, like big, long, dense encyclopedia. And I can't write like that. I just can't. It doesn't come out that way. As much as I want to sometimes write like that. And I think just letting that go has been really useful for me, right? Like your reading and writing lives don't have to match up. The important thing is that you write and that you read. And if they don't cross, it's okay.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Someone else?
Yeah. So you should have a publicity plan. I hired a publicist the second go round because I didn't have any publicity the first time. And I wondered how much that affected its sales. But the second go round, I did everything I possibly could. And definitely slept better at night because I was like, I did everything I possibly could for this book. I could not have done any more. It's up to everyone else. And also, if you do hire a publicist, you're probably not going to make that. You're not going to make that money back. So that is definitely something to consider when you're making those choices.
And this is a really, really good point. And maybe, I mean, you could ask privately about the publicists involved. But I know that your publicists email us all the time. Okay. And we work with them all the time. And that's the reason that reviews get written. Publicists are knocking on the doors of places that do reviews and saying, hey, Chelsea's got a chapbook out. And so here, it's like I can get you a copy of it. They're doing the work. And yeah, in this world of we're not all making $1 million on this. Yeah, we'll probably not make that money back. I get it. But at least you've done something for your child, right? Yeah, your book.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely lost money on that, but I still feel good about it.
Yeah.
I do.
No. It's it's what you decide to do.
It is, yeah. And look, if you can be the person who knocks on doors and is like, hey, I have a book. Good for you. Go for it. I couldn't do it. I can't do it. I don't know how. I'm not going to try. So you have to decide who you are and what you can and can't do and what you're willing to do.
Right. And Avitis, you said you were putting together your own marketing kit. And how does a publicist work into that?
Yeah, the publicist is me. I am the publicist.
So you are knocking on
doors.
You are knocking on doors. Yeah.
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 And I will say, Avitus is much better at talking to people than I am. So you were golden. I'm not worried about you. You got this.
I have to split it up though. I can't do if I followed a publicity plan and said, hey, I'm going to knock on a bunch of reviewers' doors in 1 month. I could not do it. I had to split it up into months. But I think to answer the question, the best piece of advice I received, definitely advocate for yourself. And this ties into what Chelsea was saying. I knew when I wrote the collection, number one, I knew Flash had to appear on the cover. This is a flash fiction collection. I'm going to make sure it is known as a flash fiction collection by having not stories on the cover, not a collection of stories. I want flash fiction or Flash on the cover. And then also, I wanted a Black woman on the cover because I'm a Black woman. This is a representation of me. I want a Black woman on the cover. And so I advocated for myself. I knew what I wanted and I set out to get it and I got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cover is very important. Thank you. Anyone else have one last question? We're a little bit over, but I think everyone here who's still here probably is interested in hearing answers to these questions. If you have a question, just unmute yourself and take it away. I'm glad the question about publicists and marketing comes up because it has changed over the past 10 years. The algorithms have changed. The number of people who see our posts on social media, that has changed. Sometimes we feel like we're talking to a brick wall. It's like we're just talking into the void.
It's also nice that Chelsea brought up, Christopher, that, about the money side of it, which is, realistically, I think most of us probably know authors, it's very difficult to make money, especially on your first go around, and that it's nice to get the collection out there, get your name out there in the hopes of doing more and bigger deals and all that. So thank you for speaking about that, Chelsea.
I honestly think we should be talking about money way more than we do. Because like you don't know anything when you're starting out, and no one tells you anything, and you just learn everything the hard way. And we don't have to do it that way, but that's how it is.
My mother made more on her first publication. She published um, uh, a study guide to women in the Bible. I do come from a very religious background. She made she made like 4,000 on it. And she talks about like how much did you make on them, but she made all of that money on hers. And it is a business, right? And so for a lot of the people who are involved in creating this work that we wrote, putting it out into the world, there are so many people involved in it. It costs money. So, from the printer, the person who creates the cover, all of these jobs that are involved in it. And so we're going to be talking to the publishers in a couple of weeks. We're going to be talking to Rose Metal. We're going to be talking to Autumn House and actually Curbstone, which is also a university press. We're going to be talking to them about their business models and how they stay afloat. It's like, okay, so I may not be making any money on it as the author, but how are they making money? It's like, we're at some point, we also need to look at it hard and honestly about are these independent small publishers viable? And we do have a vested interest in keeping them viable. We are their readers. So I think everyone here probably has ordered more from an independent press than others, I think. So we do have a vested interest in their success. They want our success. And so it is definitely a win-win situation. Maybe not a win millions of dollars situation. Yeah, I get that. Anybody else have one more question? And then we'll wrap this up. Oh, okay. Linda Bailey says she bought Breaking Points because she read about it on Twitter. Of course, social media is our marketing. That's like if you're not on social media, yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been wonderful talking to everyone. And for those of you who are in the workshop, I'll see you in the workshop. And thank you, Avitas, Chelsea, and Brett. It's been amazing. Thank you, everybody. See you in the workshop. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.